you about what our goals are for the class and what we would like you to get out of this in the end. So the first is this idea of cultural awareness. So one of our goals in the class is to not assign people to projects in countries where they've worked or where they're from. The idea is for you to go to a place where you don't know the culture well, and to figure out how to make that work. Second is, obviously, this is about consulting. And so we will be helping you to develop those skills if you don't have them already. We always say that IBD is teamwork on steroids. And why do I say that? Because this isn't just like your normal class team. You have lots of team projects that you do at Haas. The differentiator is that you're going to spend 3 weeks in country, 24/7 together, and you need to figure out how to work well as a team and to be productive. A little bit about leadership skills. As I mentioned, you'll go deep on some industries that maybe you don't know that much about right now, but you will by the end. And you'll get to apply some of the things you're learning in the core.
So when I found out that my project was a human rights organization that wants to innovate more and grow and scale, I was elated. It is an amazing combination for me personally of my interests and what I think business school can really bring to a human rights organization. And on another personal note, being able to work with something that's really meaningful right now and contribute makes me feel really good.
For IBD, I had a few reasons. One was to test drive whatever we have learned in the classroom. It was all great to learn while sitting in the classroom, but where it's in the real situation, how it gets tested. I thought IBD was a perfect situation or perfect culmination point for testing all that. So that was one reason why I wanted to do IBD. The other one was the immersive cultural experience. We are kind of in a bubble in Silicon Valley, so stepping out of it and trying to see how rest of the world is moving forward, and we got a chance to go to Cambodia, which was great because we definitely got a completely different perspective on life as well as on running businesses.
I think one of the great things about IBD is you're sent somewhere in the world and you didn't choose that. And there's something really spontaneous and lovely about that opportunity. So we said, okay, we probably wouldn't have gone to Finland otherwise, or we may not have. What can we do here? And we went to Estonia for one weekend where we were taken out to dinner by one of my dad's business friends from years ago. And he is now the undersecretary in Estonia. And he gave us all sorts of context and information and a lot of laughs about culture. And he was just delightful, and that wouldn't have happened otherwise. We went to Stockholm, where the other IBD team was, and got to stay in their Airbnb and explored Stockholm for a weekend, and that was wonderful. So I think it's just about taking advantage of the opportunity before you, and not only making the best of it, but really grabbing on to the plethora of opportunities that it can lead to, knowing that sometimes that can be the best part.
The real positive surprise to me was the kind of enthusiasm that everyone that we encountered in the country had. Just the overall outlook towards life, how they interacted with each of us, living in the moment, being present, and sharing their passions, their interests, and their hopes for themselves, their families. So that overall positive vibe definitely helped a lot.
it was a really cool culminating experience. I was able to apply a lot of the stuff that I learned in core and apply a lot of the stuff that I learned in the electives right away, which was very exciting. In fact, our final presentation had a lot of elements of strategic brand management, which was pretty fun. And then just being in a new country and trying to acclimate to the culture and eating all the delicious food that you normally don't get here was a lot of fun too. It really felt like I was back in like undergraduate college, because the four of us were stuck in some country and we had to get along and do cool things. So it was pretty neat that way.
I think my personal goals are largely focused on my team and making sure we have a really comfortable, good dynamic before going in country. Spending 3 weeks traveling, even with your best friend, can be stressful and crazy. And so there are going to be 5 of us, all classmates, who are going to be in Kampala together for 3 weeks. So making sure we understand each other's work dynamics and personal preferences around working and living together. We're all going to be staying together in the same house while we're there.
And we also lived, our rooms were all next to each other, so we also walked there together and walked back. And Kim, one member of our team, was just really great at planning outings for every evening. So it was a very close, a very intense social and professional experience. I don't know when else you have. Very rarely have I had that, where you work that closely with someone. We were sitting in a room together, actively collaborating on everything. We divided some things up, but really it required all of our attention. So it was just intense, working that closely together.
It's going well. I think that I am just repeatedly amazed at how competent and accomplished all of my peers are. And I think that coming together around a unified goal to support our client is really an incredibly inspiring experience and has helped me form bonds both professionally and personally with my classmates that I don't think I would have outside of the IBD experience.
I was very excited and am really excited to be on a project where the strategic work we're doing in helping this company think about revenue growth and market expansion into the US is directly related to their ability to hire more single moms in their manufacturing and processing facilities and to support the livelihood of alpaca farmers. I think I was really excited, and now that I'm working on the project, I'm getting a more nuanced understanding of what skills I need and can work on as a student to be even more effective later. So I didn't think I quite understood. I knew I would learn, but beyond just learning content, I'm also learning what my own professional gaps are. So it's been a really reflective and interpersonally growing and challenging experience as well.
I guess this has been the biggest and hardest leadership role that I've taken on at Haas. So I'm part of a couple of clubs, but you're with a wide board of leaders and you're not the one person that is taking responsibility for this project. And I guess the success or failure is, I hope the team are as part of it as me, but I think it ultimately comes down to me and whether this it results in something useful for the client. So it is kind of nerve-wracking, and it is also students who I think are a lot more qualified than me in a lot of different areas, and trying to make sure that they feel like it's a collaborative experience rather than a kind of dictatorial or a real leadership, because you can't when people around you are so great at so many different things.
Definitely pushing myself a lot. I think it's useful really to kind of learn about how consultants really approach this, or these problems, these situations on a general basis. Learning the frameworks on how to boil down a big problem into smaller steps and kind of track the milestones to really help to drive the team towards that conclusion. So it has been a pretty big learning process, but it's been also a valuable one at that.
Opportunity to try and road test out different leadership styles before I hit my professional career, where my decisions are really going to have a significant impact. And what I appreciate about IBD is that there are stakes with the client, but the stakes aren't too high, so you can afford to take this chance to really experiment with a leadership style that works well for you.
I would say IBD for me was an experience like this. So I started very high spirit and I was really excited and motivated. And then like through the middle of the semester, right when actually the team joined, I was really almost like at the bottom of my motivation, and like my morale was very low because I was feeling like, oh my God, how are we going to deliver something that will impress this client that expects a lot? But right now, after doing the groundwork and the research and interviews with different involved parties, I'm really up here, and I think that by the time we finish in India, I will be even much higher than where I was at the beginning.
In the past 1 month, I think I've learned more about retail and consulting than in the past like 3 years at school, or two and a half years at school.
None of us had, maybe one person had a little bit more understanding on the industry, but it's a huge industry and it's easy to understand every little bit of it. So we didn't have any experts. We did contact a lot of experts while we were in the Bay Area, and actually it was very helpful to be here and a part of the Berkeley community. But with what we knew about management and marketing and our background in sales or consulting or tech, we were able to provide the solution that they needed.
And in terms of receiving a work product that they could use, they kept us there all the way through our last Friday till 5 p.m. Once we finished one deliverable, they just wanted to pick our brains on something else. So I felt like they really valued having us there, not only in terms of cranking out work products, but also as sort of advisors with an outside perspective that they could bounce ideas off of. And I think ultimately from a consulting engagement, that's really where you want to end up, less around sort of an extended team member that's producing a product for a client and more around a trusted strategic advisor, which is where I felt like we got.
And when I first heard what we were doing, I was like, wow, I have no experience in food, definitely no experience in Indonesia. But I think that, immediately I was able to see like, okay, this is something that I'm going to use, if not just for the leadership experience, if not just for the strategic alignment and the strategic brainstorming process, and then pinning down a project and then providing recommendations. All of that is going to be something that I need, particularly in media where you're always trying to convince somebody to make a project or convince somebody not to do a project, and how it's going to, like what the strategy is for making that as successful as possible. So they were definitely relevant.
I think the skills that I learned in IBD even the basic consulting skills, from segmenting the market to thinking more about how do you figure out the size for that market, to figuring out how do you decide how to approach a go-to-market strategy for a particular segment. I think those skills came in really handy when I did my work on this project, and then I was thinking about these things in a much strategic way rather than just like what I did in my previous job, just go tackle the problem rather than thinking about it more broadly. So IBD, I feel, gave me that skill set which I liked previously, and I kind of honed it in a much better way in the 3 months I was in my summer internship with.
I feel really lucky to be a part of this. As I said, I think it's an incredible learning experience. So I've loved, working with Christy as a faculty mentor. That's been really amazing. Getting this leadership training from Mike Katz has been really great. So I feel like on the one hand, I'm really learning while doing, which is incredible. But then on the other hand, at the end of the day, we're doing real tangible work that contributes.
But yeah, I think I came back saying that wasn't the easiest. I learned a ton, and I had a great time. And I made closer relationships with some really wonderful people. So I'm extraordinarily grateful for the IBD opportunity.
Yeah, it definitely did. So I went to Guatemala, and I'd actually been to Guatemala before, but sort of as a backpacker, backpacking through Central America. And so it was very interesting coming back and working there. Had a chance to really use my Spanish language skills in a business context. Also to explore an industry that I'd been familiar with through projects in Asia, specifically retail, and then seeing how some of the trends that we were seeing in my former company could really be applied but then tailored to the local Latin American context. There's also very interesting, again, being responsible for a team and not only delivering the work, but also managing the relationship and expectations of the client. So I felt like, on the whole, it definitely met and exceeded my expectations.
It was great to see, even before we left, they were actually starting to implement some of our recommendations. I think I was surprised how rewarding that feeling can be, that you designed something, you recommended something, and the client is actually taking action on that. That was, I would say, the best part of it.